Hey guys, it's DVD Gamer Girl here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a little bit of a different video for you guys. I know I play DVD a lot, but one of my all-time favorite game series is definitely Zelda. And recently a new game came out on the Nintendo Switch, which is Zelda Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I'm a huge fan of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and based on that, I kind of wanted to play Age of Calamity and see if there are any aspects of the game that people might like if they enjoyed Breath of the Wild. I know Age of Calamity and Breath of the Wild are two completely different style of games. Like, Age of Calamity is more comparable to the first Hyrule Warriors that came out back in 2014, and that's a hack and slash type of game style. But there are actually a lot of things incorporated in Age of Calamity that I think Breath of the Wild fans will really enjoy, because I personally really liked these aspects. So this might help anyone that might be kind of split on if they want to get the game or not, if you're a big Zelda fan, but maybe don't like the hack and slash style gameplay. So here are 10 things that Age of Calamity has that I think Breath of the Wild fans will really enjoy. So my first point is that Age of Calamity does serve as a backstory set up to Breath of the Wild. You may have heard that this game serves as a prequel to the events that happened in Breath of the Wild, and in some senses that is true, as in this game shows the events that happened 100 years prior to the start of the events in Breath of the Wild. And it does show Hyrule at the time, and it shows all the champions and their kind of backstories and history. And I do think it serves its purpose in that sense, but the way that it's a little bit different is that it does introduce a shift in the timeline, which you will see in like the very beginning of the game. And I don't really want to get into any spoilers here, but it might not be 100% what you expect, and that's why I think people kind of disagree on this, whether this is a true prequel or not. But for me personally, I'm just a sucker for any kind of Zelda backstory and lore, so the time shifts and things like that don't really bother me because it's very typical of Zelda games. So if you are similar to me in that sense, you will definitely enjoy this as a precursor to Breath of the Wild. The second thing that Age of Calamity does well for Breath of the Wild fans is that it uses the same map. It's literally exactly the same map, and you can revisit all the same places as Breath of the Wild. I would say the only difference here is that it's like a mission-based format, so you can only visit those areas when you have a quest in those areas. It's not the open world Breath of the Wild format where you can just go anywhere whenever you want to. So it is a little bit more restricted in that sense, but it kind of makes sense for the Hyrule Warriors game for it to not be open world. And that kind of leads me into the third point as well, is that in this game, because it's based on 100 years prior to the start of Breath of the Wild, you'll get to see a lot of the places not in ruins. So for example, like in the first mission that you play, which is Hyrule Castle Town area, you get to see it thriving and full of life. It's not just all destroyed and ruined like it is in Breath of the Wild, so it is kind of cool to see it differently in that way.
Oh my god! Wow!
So my fourth point is that if you liked being able to cook dishes in Breath of the Wild, this game definitely maintains that, and you still have the same ingredients and inventory and those concepts like that. The only way that it varies a little bit is that you have these quests on your map to actually just learn the recipes, and then you can choose to just cook the recipes from the like loading screen of the mission before you start any missions. So it's not like Zelda Breath of the Wild, where you kind of like find somewhere to cook and then you can just throw whatever ingredients you want together and just cook something. It's more restricted in the sense that it lets you pick from like the recipes that you know, and you can only do it before starting a mission. But the idea is there, so I think that's pretty fun. And the fifth point that I have, which is actually one of my favorite things about the game that I think Breath of the Wild fans will really enjoy, is that you can actually play as the key characters from Breath of the Wild. So obviously you can play as Link and Zelda, but you can also play as like Impa, Daruk, Mipha, Urbosa, Rivali, etc. And you can also play as the Divine Beasts. And I think it's really cool because all of the different characters have their different special abilities and they play very differently, so I think that different people will enjoy playing as some of the different characters. And the fact that they're playable at all, which is completely unlike the Breath of the Wild Zelda game, is really cool, and I think that fans will really enjoy that aspect, especially if you have some favorites. And that kind of leads into the fact that this game also brings in Sheikah Slate abilities. So if you remember all the Sheikah Slate abilities from Breath of the Wild, there was Stasis, which holds everyone in place and you can kind of make a lot of attacks on them while they're frozen in time. There's Magnesis, which allows you to move metal objects and attack enemies with them. There's Remote Bomb, which is self-explanatory. And there's Cryonis, which lets you freeze pillars of ice. And I think that the abilities being brought into this game is really cool because it's definitely unique. And it's also unlike the previous Hyrule Warriors game. Like these abilities definitely did not exist in that, and this kind of makes it specific to Breath of the Wild instead of like the previous general Hyrule Warriors type game. And the other cool thing about the Sheikah Slate abilities is that it kind of varies between character to character. So if you're using the same ability between like Zelda and Link, for example, they actually use the abilities differently. So it's kind of cool to get to know how the abilities work with each of the characters and kind of explore that and use the ones that you like best on the characters that you like best and things like that. My next point is that you'll also see all the same key enemies from Breath of the Wild, like you'll see Hinoxes, Moblins, etc. And the cool thing is also that you'll see some new variations on those. So for example, there are some elemental moblins, like electrified moblins. So I think that those are really cool to see as well. If you enjoyed fighting all of the original enemies in Breath of the Wild, just being able to see some new spin-offs on those. And my next point is kind of like a random one, but there are also Koroks in this game. So if you did enjoy that in Breath of the Wild, just kind of having that in the back of your head to look for those as you play, you will be able to do that again in Age of Calamity. The next thing is that you have the same outfit customizations as you were able to do in Breath of the Wild. So you can like switch between like Zora and Gerudo outfits and things like that, or Link's typical outfit. And one of the funniest things for me is that it shows the outfits like that you're wearing in the cutscenes. So one of my personal favorites is just to like have him like in his very basic outfit, which is just shirtless and just like having his shorts on. And I did get the Lucky Ladle from pre-ordering this game. So it's always really funny to me when he's just like in these dramatic cutscenes, like basically just not wearing anything and just having like a soup ladle as his weapon and a pot lid as his shield. So that's just like a personal thing for me, but if you do care about the outfits or you enjoyed anything particular of those from Breath of the Wild, you will see this again. And last but not least is the multiplayer aspect to this game. It's local co-op if you want to play local co-op. And I mean, not all Breath of the Wild fans might enjoy this, but I personally really like this aspect of it because, as you guys know, like the typical Zelda games don't really have any kind of multiplayer aspect to it. It's very strict solo player. And it does make sense for that style of game, but it is nice to be able to play this with someone else, and in a way it does make the missions a lot easier because you're doing the same exact mission, but you just have one extra person. So it's fun to be able to kind of share this whole Zelda Breath of the Wild experience with another person if that is your style. That being said, I mean, there are a couple issues with this game, one of them being the frame rate. I know that there are some frame rate issues and some people do complain about that in the reviews because it does bother them. Me personally, frame rate issues don't really bother me. I have a pretty high tolerance for that. But if that is something that bothers you, then definitely keep that in mind, especially in multiplayer. It is more significant in that mode. And the other final thing really is thinking about the gameplay style, and if you do enjoy that gameplay style of hack and slash, because this is unlike any of the other Zelda games other than Hyrule Warriors. So if that really matters to you, then, and you don't like hack and slash type style of game, just definitely keep in mind that this game is only that. But if kind of the backstory and the lore and the characters and things like that matter to you a bit more than the actual gameplay, then definitely consider this game, because I think it does a really good job of delivering that. And obviously, if hack and slash type gameplay is for you, this game is for you. But it does share a lot of the characters, the locations, soundtrack, enemies, as Breath of the Wild. If you do want to kind of revisit that game while we all wait for Breath of the Wild 2, if nothing else, it serves its purpose for that. And it's unique in that sense, is that it's a spin-off of that specific game, whereas the previous Hyrule Warriors was kind of a celebration of all of the Zelda games and all of the Zelda characters, and it was kind of a little bit of a chaotic mix. So this one is more focused, and I do enjoy that about it. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that little bit of an informal review on this game. And if it helped you, in any way, definitely let me know. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me on any of the points I made, leave any comments down below. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy my content. And I hope you guys are having a great weekend. And I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.